Hello there, and welcome to Project 486. Today I bring to you I work as a security guard for a company that takes jobs no one else will, Part 2, written by Scary Stories with BB. I want to thank him for allowing me to use these stories on my channel, and I urge you to go check out his Facebook page, his Reddit, and most of all his book, titled Scary Stories with BB Halloween Collection, which is available on Amazon right now. I know when I started reading it, I had trouble putting it down, so if you're a lover of dark tales, you're sure to enjoy it. All of the links to his social media and to his book are down below in the description, so please show him some love and support. Now, on with the show. So a lot of you were asking to hear more about my job and the duties that come along with it. I'll be sharing in this post more about the stories I have and what I heard from the other guards. I know you particularly want to know more about the woman in Building 6, so I'll be sharing my experience with that first. This happened about a year ago, but I still dread going back to the building every time during my patrol. I was doing a sweep of the building, using my flashlight to illuminate my path. As I was done checking one of the offices, as I turned around, my heart nearly popped out of my chest at what the beam of my flashlight landed on. It was a woman in her late 20s, with unkempt hair and raggedy clothes. She was just standing there, staring at me, not even flinching at the light in her face. I was about to talk to her, thinking she was a squatter, completely forgetting about the rules since I had never once encountered her by then. And then, when I remembered the rules that I was supposed to ignore her, my heart started to thump fast. I lowered my flashlight to my waist, pretending I was looking at something on the wall to prevent her from seeing my beam bouncing up and down from my trembling hands. I remembered that I had to do a full sweep before leaving if she was here, and I was only done with one floor, so at the thought of this, I cursed in my mind. "Hey, I'm sorry, I think I fell asleep in one of the offices and stayed after closing," she said, but I ignored her. I pretended to look around some more, but knew I could only do it for so long before she got suspicious, so I decided to test my luck and just went for the door. As soon as I was inches close to her, she just stepped aside and let me move along. I strode to the next office, but heard her following me right behind. "Hey, can you please let me out? My children must be worried sick," she repeated. The next 15 minutes or so, she was breathing down my neck, constantly trying to grab my attention. As I entered one of the offices, she pointed to the corner opposite of where my beam was and said, "Hey, who's that over there?" I fought the urge to look there, knowing she was lying, but half scared that someone would just jump me right around the corner. As I progressed with my sweep, she became increasingly irritated, throwing stuff in my direction. Not at me, mind you, but trying to startle me by throwing them in front of my face. Suddenly, jumping in my walking path with a loud scream before moving aside again, clasping her hands over her mouth and pointing behind me with wide eyes, which screamed utter fear, and even saying things like, "I know you can see me. I know you know I'm here. I can see how scared you are." I ignored all her provocations as much as I could, and by the time I was back on the first floor, more than ready to get out, she was saying things like, "Are you sure you checked all the rooms?" giggling along the way. I put the key in the keyhole and everything went quiet. I didn't wait to see if she was gone, but instead just went out as calmly as I could and locked the door behind me. I couldn't sleep for a few weeks after that. A few months ago, I was stationed at an office building. At first, it seemed like a common job, but I knew there was a catch before I even signed up. Sure enough, I was right. My partner and I were stationed on floor 43, which was undergoing renovations. Our job was simply to stand in front of a door. The door had a card reader and we were given access, but were strictly forbidden from entering. People in hazmat suits would be coming in and out all day long from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. We would let them in and out as they pleased, keeping track of the number of people who came and went. Now the catch was, after 1,600 hours, we were ordered not to let anyone in or out. That meant even if someone knocked at the door at 16:01, we were to ignore them entirely. There would always be at least 3 people who'd try to leave the room after 1600 hours, always asking politely and then becoming increasingly desperate, saying they simply lost track of time and pleading with us, saying that their family was waiting for them at home. We always ignored their crying and pleading no matter how desperate it was, until it turned into whimpers and then finally stopped. Now I've only seen the room from the door, and from what I could see, it was just a normal room undergoing renovation like the rest of the floor, so whatever was in there must have been deeper inside or hidden in plain sight. As for the numbers we tracked, the number of people who got out by the end of the day was always lower than the number of people who went in. One story a guard named Chris told me was about his time in an old mansion guarding a big mirror. He and his co-worker were in the security room patrolling every hour, especially making sure that the mirror was covered with the sheet. They were to under no circumstances look at the mirror. They had a camera feed of the mirror which was on the bottom floor, under the stairs, but it was turned so that the reflective side faced away from the camera. This one night, Chris's coworker goes for a patrol, and as he enters the mirror room, suddenly the sheet just slides off. Now the guy who told me this said it was technically impossible for the sheet to just come off, because it was fastened tightly, but somehow it did, and his partner just finds himself staring at the mirror. Chris locks the security room, as per instructions from HQ, and calls the intervention team. Meanwhile, he glances back at the camera feed, only to find his coworker still staring blankly in the mirror. He thought the camera was frozen, but the timer was still moving, so his partner was just very still. He tried radioing him, but there was no response. After about a minute or so, all of a sudden his partner pulls out his gun, puts it in his mouth, and blows his brains out. Chris was transferred the next day since a special team was sent to secure the mirror, and his services were no longer needed. One position that everyone is massively trying to apply for is the surveillance office in a small town close to my own. Why they want the position is what I'll get into in a bit. So basically, the camera feed on the monitors in HQ over there cover various private households. One of the households is said to have a man in a suit show up at the doorstep from time to time. Now usually, guards need to go out to the address and make sure everything is okay or apprehend the intruder. But for this specific individual, HQ left a very unique guide. If the security official notices an individual in business attire on camera 12 during his shift, the steps below must be followed when confronting the individual. 1. Approach the individual and wait for him to turn around. He will continue to smile for the entirety of the conversation, but should his expression change, disengage and run to safety as quickly as possible. Be advised that while firearms are not prohibited, they are highly ineffective against the individual. Do not turn or look away from the individual once he is turned around unless you need to evacuate. 2. The individual will, after turning around, inquire, "Lovely night, isn't it?" If the individual has not asked this question, follow the previous step and evacuate. 3. If the individual has inquired the aforementioned question, respond with, "Yes it is. What can I do for you?" Or, "Indeed it is. How can I help you?" A combination of both works as well. If the individual ceases to smile during this interaction, proceed to evacuate immediately. 4. If done correctly, the individual will now ask, "Can you sing me a song?" If he says anything else, evacuate. 5. From here, you are to sing the pre-taught song to the individual, while ignoring his taunts and distractions. If so much as one word, pause, tone, or stress are missed, evacuate. If the individual stops smiling during the song, evacuate. 6. If done correctly, the individual will say, "Splendid. Thank you for the beautiful song." If he says anything aside from that, evacuate. 7. If step 6 was done correctly, close your eyes for at least 10 seconds and then open them. On the front of the steps where the individual stood will now be a briefcase containing a large sum of money, while the individual himself will be gone and the household safe. 8. On the way back, the security official may encounter people of various ages in dire need of help. Most common occurrences include starving women with newborn babies, lost children, an attractive young woman hitchhiking, etc. They are to be ignored and not offered assistance under any circumstances. 9. Return to post and turn off camera 12. Note: the company does not claim the reward from the individual. Therefore, the security official is free to keep it. The high-risk, high-reward position makes it attractive to many people, but most of them never live to tell the tale. I was once told that the candidates go through rigorous training, focusing primarily on sprinting. The candidates also need to pass the test which simulates the encounter with the businessman, no less than 5 times with a 95% or higher score. They are forced to remember the song perfectly, going through a computerized scanner which detects any notes which were off. I don't know what the song is, but I was told it's a simple tune which sounds like something taught in preschool. Anyway, this is as far as I'll go on this post, but I have some more stories to share in my future updates. In the meantime, stay safe and try to stay away from these kinds of things. They sound attractive due to the pay or the rush some people thrive on, but a tiny mistake can cost you your life, or worse.